Hello and welcome to Ditching Hourly. I'm Jonathan Stark. Today I am joined by guest David Shriner-Cahn. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jonathan. Great to be here.
Awesome. So before we get started, could you tell folks who maybe haven't heard your name before what you're all about, what you do, what's your mission in life?
My mission in life is to help corporate refugees start, run, and grow their own businesses so they can do more of what they love and get paid what they're worth. And this really mirrors my own story. I spent the first 28 years of my career as an employee, primarily in executive roles. And in 2006, left my last job, started a solo consulting business. And now we serve folks that are trying to do what I did, which is to leave corporate behind and make their own business work for them and support their lifestyle.
Hmm. After all that time in-house, was there something particular that prompted you to go out on your own?
Yes, I got pushed, like many people. So it wasn't the only time I was pushed. I was trained as an engineer, had two engineering jobs, and just after my second annual review in my second job, when I got a nice review and a big raise, a month later, my boss called me into his office. He said, "David, I have good news and bad news. The good news is you're doing a great job. The bad news is you don't have a job here anymore." And right, I was young and naive, and I was doing what I was taught to do in engineering school, which is focus on solving engineering problems. What I didn't focus on was the fact that the company that I worked for had lost a huge portion of their business and ended up firing a significant chunk of the staff. So I wasn't alone, but I was still unemployed.
Yeah.
And I looked ahead at what was going on in the world and in my field, and I saw that it was a time of a lot of corporate turmoil. And I worked for a smaller company. There were, I'm guessing, maybe 150 engineers on staff. And in school, I think the role model was somebody that worked for one of the Fortune 100 or certainly Fortune 500 corporations.
Yeah.
And in those days, this is before there were 401ks and IRAs in America. And so the model was you went to work for one of these big companies, and if you stayed there, usually it was like 20 plus years, you were eligible to receive a pension. In those days, pensions were defined benefit. So you really, if you wanted to be able to have money in your retirement, you actually needed to be with one of these companies for a long time. And I saw that at that point, some of these companies were going through the same kind of turmoil that my small company went through. And there were these, guys that were being fired that were mostly in their 50s. And in many cases, they were a little bit short of what they needed in order to be fully vested in these pension plans. And I'm like, I don't know if this is really where I want to go with my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a lot of soul searching and and I thought about entrepreneurship at that point. I grew up in a very risk-averse family. Both my parents were employees their entire lives. I didn't know anybody who was an entrepreneur. I had no idea even how to do it. So I sort of was intrigued by the idea, but had no clue how to execute, and ended up just switching careers and going into the nonprofit sector, which I thought would be a little bit more humane when it came to employer-employee relationships, and a little bit more humane about loyalty working in both directions in that relationship.
Right.
I learned over the years, I was in the nonprofit sector for 23 years. I learned that some nonprofits work that way and many of them didn't. And many of them followed the same kind of, I would say, employment habits that for-profit companies had. And the seeds were planted from that earlier experience.
Right.
And I really wanted to figure out a way to just be in control of my career and my family's financial health in a way that I knew that I wouldn't be as an employee. So, in my last job, and I was in my last job for 18 years, so it was a long run. The linear move for me, I kind of, peaked in in the growth opportunities in the organization. The linear move would have been to go to another organization as in a higher role. I was in a vice president role, so I was in a number 2 position. So I could have gone to become an executive director of another organization, or maybe the same kind of role in a much bigger organization. And thinking about my earlier experience and my desire to be in more control, I thought, well, I know people that are consultants. I know it's possible to do this. And as a matter of fact, in my role as an executive, I had hired lots of them.
Hmm.
So, I was reviewing their contracts and proposals and all that. So, I had a pretty good idea of what I needed to do. And I thought, you know what, if I don't do it at the next opportunity, I may never do it. And then there was a change in who I reported to. The organization brought in a new CEO, and we know that that's often when changes happen.
Yep.
We had some overlap in skills, and I knew it was probably a matter of time before either I was going to leave voluntarily or I would get pushed out. I decided to wait till I would get the push,
Hmm.
and then opened up my own business.
Wow. Okay, that's great. It's the sort of funny thing going in the back of my mind is you said earlier that you're from sort of a risk averse family, and but then along the story, it's like, well, which is really the more risky thing to be, an employee or sort of in charge of your own life? And I often think of a something I first read in Seth Godin's book, The Icarus. Now I'm forgetting the name, Icarus Deception, where he talks about the comfort zone and the safety zone, and that in times of low change, they pretty much are all completely overlapped. And in times of rapid change, they are not overlapped at all. And it feels like, for at least my adult life, the pace of change has just been accelerating more and more. So, like, the safe thing to do is get out of your comfort zone, which is exactly what you did. Cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So now you are helping people make the same leap. Maybe, I mean, if you could tell it from the perspective of your personal story, it'd be super interesting. When you first went solo, who did you reach out to, or what references did you reach for? Did you, talk to your consulting colleagues that you had hired in the past and sort of like look for a mentor or something like that? Or did you just jump in the jump in the deep end of the pool? What was the process you took?
Yeah, it was both because I jumped in because I had, as I said, I sensed that it was coming. I just didn't know when.
Hmm.
And so I knew what I wanted to do, but I hadn't really lined up any ducks. So I left my job with no clients, essentially no business plan. What I knew was I was really good at nonprofit management, particularly when it came to finance and operations, which was my sort of my niche. So I knew what kinds of problems I could solve. I knew what kinds of organizations I could solve them for, but I had no leads for business. I had
Hmm.
no business model in mind. As a matter of fact, I remember one of my early prospects, which was a referral from a mentor. I had no idea what to charge or how to charge, I've learned a lot about it since then. And I'm totally on the same page with you about ditching hourly billing, but I didn't know. And from hiring consultants, I saw the way they priced. And in fact, many of them charged a daily rate or an hourly rate,
Right.
and some of them would charge a project fee. So I was familiar with coming up with a project fee or a time-based fee.
Hmm.
And with this client, I used a time-based fee, which I realized in hindsight was probably not the smartest thing to do. But it worked okay. It was a good client, a good chunk of business. We live and learn.
Right. Yeah, I mean, almost everybody goes through that phase. Hardly, it's not unheard of, but it's pretty rare for somebody to go solo and do anything besides hourly. So, but yep, but like you said, you live and learn. It's got pros and cons. Long term, obviously, I'm not a fan, but sometimes, you got to keep the lights on.
Right,
So,
exactly. Right,
yeah.
exactly. And to answer your question about mentors, I did find some people who were very good mentors, one of whom was a professor at the Columbia Business School, which I had attended shortly before I left my last job. I was in an executive education program there for the nonprofit sector, and developed a relationship with one of the faculty. And he was very generous to meet with me on a regular basis. So we would have lunch maybe once a month, and that was great. And then there was a consultant I had hired for a project a few years before I started my business, and we became friendly, would stay in touch every once in a while. And then that actually developed into a much deeper relationship once I started my business. And I brought him in on a project, which was great. He taught me a lot as
Cool.
a right as a basically as a subcontractor on the project. had a wealth of experience, and he's somebody who had been a management consultant for most of his career. So yeah, so that was great. And then you would meet periodically, and we tried pitching a bunch of things together, most of which ended up not becoming closed business, but the relationship developed nonetheless.
Cool. That's nice. So, okay. So let's fast forward into, what you've been doing now. You said you went solo in 2006, so we're coming up on 20 years. When, like, what is this scenario that, like, when someone comes to you, a corporate refugee, as you call them, which I love, when they are either pushed or decide to leave their corporate job and not look for another one, which I think is an interesting decision, where are their heads at? Like, what is the first thing that you need to help them get their heads around for them to set them up for success? Because, and by the way, there's probably a number of people listening to this episode who have recently been pushed out of a FANG company. So software developers that were making good six-figure salaries or compensation packages, maybe into the 500,000s, that now are sitting on a nice bank account. They don't have to rush into things. So they have time to think about whether or not they are going to go solo, maybe try and get another job. And if they are considering going out on their own, like what could you tell that person?
So actually, you just mentioned one thing which is really important, Jonathan. And I got this piece of advice from one of my mentors, which is at some point, you need to make a decision about whether you're going to look for another job or you actually want to build a business, because they require very different mindsets, very different activities, different kinds of energy. I personally find that it's really hard to split yourself into doing both. And what I've seen with people that try to do both is they don't really do a good job at either one. So they
Mm-hmm.
don't build the business all that successfully, and they don't do the job hunting all that successfully. So I think you need to make a decision right up front. What do you really want long term? What's your wish? Is your dream to be your own boss and have control over your destiny in the way you and I have just talked about
Right.
earlier?
Right.
Or do you just want the quote unquote comfort of another job with a steady paycheck? So I think you need to make that decision first.
Yeah, I totally
Second,
agree.
right? Second thing is, I think it's really important to take a sabbatical. And I use the word
Mm.
sabbatical on purpose because in our culture, sabbatical means a break from the routine. And it's a break from the routine because it gives you a chance to do some deep self-reflection with some emotional detachment from what's going on right now. And that's really important because if you've been an employee for a long time, like I was, making the shift to be an entrepreneur is going to require some big changes in your life, in your thinking, in your comfort with discomfort.
Mhm.
There are so many things that are different. For example, when you're an employee, if you're wrong more than 10% of the time, you're probably going to hear a lot about it. As an entrepreneur, if you're right more than 10% of the time, you're often doing really well.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So you have to be really comfortable with just trying things when you know they're not perfect and just seeing what happens and learning from the results. And that's so different from what happens as an employee. That's just one example.
So,
So
yeah, this idea of a sabbatical has never occurred to me, but when you said it, it immediately looked like the answer to a problem that I have seen that I never had a good solution for, which was that people, they go solo, they are perhaps not as financially set up as they would have liked, and they rush into the first paycheck. And when I say paycheck, I mean hourly billing, the first whale client they can find, and they continue with this employee mentality of not leading the engagement and just being told what to do like a part-time employee. And that employee mentality, which is, I'm not ragging on it, it's like it is the way that you should be an employee. But if you don't take a break, I love this idea of taking a break and kind of resetting so that you break all of your employee habits and you have a chance to have the breathing room to really kind of visualize what it's going to be like in the new world order, where you are your own boss. You don't have to be anywhere at a particular time. If you don't go find work, there will be no work. It doesn't just show up on your desk. there's so many differences in your every single day is completely different than it would have been. So I just love this idea of taking a break to get ready for that.
Yeah. And by the way, if you're not in the position where you can just sit and self-reflect for a period of time and not bring in income because you need the income in order to support your lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
there are still ways you can take a sabbatical. So,
Do tell.
right. So you could accept something that just comes your way that may or may not be the ideal piece of business, whether it's as an employee or as an entrepreneur, with the following caveats. I think you need to look at it as a stopgap, as something that's interim,
Mm-hmm.
where you're not emotionally invested in doing this kind of thing long term. You have a time frame in mind for which this stopgap is going to provide some income. And you need to do it in a way that you have enough time and bandwidth, emotional bandwidth, to do some deep self-reflection. So it's like you can do the work, but don't get all hung up about it. And make sure you have enough hours to spend working on yourself and what you really want to build long term.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that still meets the criteria of sabbatical.
I know you've got this list of steps. I could probably spend the whole rest of the episode talking about sabbatical. So I don't want to do that yet. So let's keep going.
All right. So anyway, you do need this self-reflection period. And when you're ready for this transition, you might be in a full-time job and planning an exit. You might be suddenly pushed out. And by the way, way more people are pushed out than we realize. I've saw a statistic, and by the way, this isn't tracked very heavily in the US, but I saw a statistic that if you're over the age of 50, you have more than a 50% likelihood that you're going to experience involuntary job loss at some point and experience financial consequences as a result. I discovered when I decided I really wanted to go sort of deep into this niche that many of my friends who were successful consultants had started their businesses when they got pushed out, and they had never told anybody that.
Right.
I didn't tell anybody I got pushed out in 2006.
Yeah,
It
I
was
think it's pretty common.
years later.
I've heard this story more often than not. Like when you talk to people who, like you or like me, that, yeah, that's often the case. And they just like, Alan Weiss has a famous story where he's like, he got fired and he says something like, I vowed to myself that I would never be fired by an idiot again. And, something like, something typically Alan. But
Yes.
yeah, but it's very common. That is very common.
Yeah. So anyway, so you could be anywhere on this path between full-time job and full-time entrepreneur. And we have a couple members of our community that are both. They're working hard and they're generating a lot of income because they're doing both. And there are reasons why they're doing both. And you could have anywhere from no business income to some business income to sustainable business income. And we do work with people that have been entrepreneurs for a while and have sustainable business income, but they're usually in a stage where they feel like the business is running them than the other way around. And they're making enough money to pay their bills, so they're doing okay, but they know something has to shift, and it's not working the way it should. But anyway, there are all these different stages that you could be in, and so you really need to identify what stage are you in now, and where do you want to be, and then what's holding you back. It's really important to know what's holding you back because that's what you have to work on. And then I like to kind of lay out what I look at as maybe roughly a 12-month roadmap with 5 stages, 5 steps.
Mm-hmm.
And I call these aim, assess, validate, craft, and go. And in particular, whether you're starting from scratch in your business or you have an existing business, if there's something that you want to change, the first step is aim, which is be really clear on what you want to achieve and why. And this requires a couple of things. One is I like to ask people up front, what's your exit strategy? When you no longer want to be part of whatever business you're in or you want to be in, at some point you are going to exit. What does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Because knowing where you want to end up is going to dictate how you should start. You just reverse engineer the entire process. And many people don't like to think about exit strategy. I think is actually the first thing you need to think about.
It's a fair point. I am a huge fan of beginning with the end in mind. What kind of a time frame are most of the people you're talking to looking at? I mean, are they 55 and they're thinking, because 10 years isn't that far away, but if you're 35, like what's the time scale when you're working with someone? Is it like a 10, like even if they're only 35, it's like, well, just plan you're going to do this business for 10 years and then you're going to exit and then you'll do your next thing. Is that more like it or
It's a personal choice. Somebody who's 35 may want to be working in their business until they can't function anymore, which could
Mhm.
be another 60 years,
Right.
right? Or they may say, I want to do this long enough to build something where I can have financial freedom, right? I have enough assets and income that the assets generate that will support my current lifestyle without me actually doing any more work.
Right.
And I think I can do this in 10 years. So
Mhm.
that's a totally different kind of exit strategy. Some people
Right.
want to build something they can sell. Some people want to just do something where they love the work and they want to make income while they're doing it. And at some point they want to stop.
Hmm.
So it's very personal. But
Yeah.
you need to know what it is for you. And by the way, your exit strategy could change because your family situation could change, your personal situation could change. The marketplace may teach you things that you didn't know about that you may change what your exit strategy is. It's okay for it to change, but whatever it is right now, that's what you need to base your plans on.
Right. Yeah. It's like setting a budget in a sense. It's like it might not actually be exact or even a plan of attack. It's like, no plan meets survives contact with the enemy. But if you don't have it, you're just kind of like a kite with no string. It's just kind of, just flopping around. If you do have some kind of goal, you can, yeah, or objective, you can take corrective action, revise, and all those sorts of things. It's super helpful. I like it. I like it.
So as part of this initial self-reflection, besides the exit strategy, it's really important to be clear on what your vision is. Like, what's your why? What are your goals and what are your objectives? And by goals, I'm talking about something that is specific enough so you know when you're working toward them, but they're not measurable. So there's always more to do. So like you have a goal of ditching hourly billing,
Hmm.
right? There's always going to be more to do. There are always more people to serve, but you know when you're working on it. And an
Yeah.
objective might be, I want to have 100 more people in a program within the next 12 months. That's
Hmm.
very specific. So
Right.
that's right. That's the initial step. Second step, assess, is being, and this is also a deep self-reflective piece. What is it you're most passionate about doing? What is it that you're most competent at doing? And who do you want to serve?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
The longtime listeners will be familiar with this framework. Yeah.
Yes, this is pretty common,
Yeah.
but you do need to gain some clarity around this. It's really important, and you need to at the end of this step, you need to have a hypothesis about a particular problem that you can solve,
Hmm.
right? And then the next step, validate, is gaining market confirmation, and this is a step particularly people coming out of corporate don't like doing. They
Yeah.
don't like doing the market research, and when I say market research, this doesn't have to be something super complicated. Essentially, what you need to do is you need to have conversations with people who know about your target market and know about the problem and can give you some feedback about whether there is really a need that is out there and a problem that somebody else wants to solve. And the way I describe a good client is somebody who knows he or she has a problem. They want the problem solved. They're willing to get some help to get it solved, and they're willing to pay for the help to get it solved, and they have the capacity to pay for it to be solved. And if they don't have all of those things, they're probably not going to be a good client.
Right. Yeah. So what are some of the tactical steps that you would that your the people in your community, let's say, that they take to validate ideas? Is it just, networking and having with people in the target market and have conversations with them or people who know them? Or is it something more like floating an initial, some kind of initial service and just seeing if you can sell maybe a very tightly packaged thing and see if there's any demand for a kind of starter version of this, like an assessment or a roadmap or something? Like what do people do to get this validation? And when they get the feedback, what kinds of things would you count as validation? So like that the hypothesis has been proven true or proven false. Like what are the smoke signals? Or it feels like reading
Right.
tea leaves sometimes.
Well, the first thing actually is to have the conversations before you try to even create something that is very simple that you try to sell. Because what I see happen over and over again, and I have experienced this myself, I've made this mistake lots of times, which is I think I see a problem that needs to be solved. I know I can solve it. And I create something that I think is relatively simple, low cost, and nobody buys.
Nobody cares, right?
Right.
Because they don't
For
see it as a
whatever
problem.
reason. And
Right.
I've wasted a lot of energy thinking about it. I've wasted time and maybe some money trying to even create something small. What's way better is to talk to three kinds of people about the problem. Somebody who knows about the ideal client. So this could be somebody who maybe is a journalist or writes on the topic, or maybe somebody who runs a community or is involved in an association. You know, they're not necessarily directly either working with the kind of target market you're talking about on solving the problem, or they're not in the target market themselves, but they know about the topic.
Hmm.
Second is somebody who may serve your target market, somebody you would describe as your ideal client, but they don't solve the same problem, but they'll know a little bit about it. And the last one is somebody who actually is in the target market, who might be a candidate for a solution. But the really important thing is this is not a sales conversation. I think
Hmm.
you need to tell them up front, I'm not trying to sell anything. I just want to hear from you. I just want to hear your opinion about this. I would really greatly appreciate you spending, 15 minutes, 30 minutes with me for a cup of coffee, virtual cup of coffee, just giving me your thoughts about this idea, whether you think, whatever. And even if they say during the conversation they want to buy, you should tell them you're not ready to sell it yet. You have to do more research. You'll get back to them.
Hmm. Yeah, this is critical, and you're preaching to the choir here. There's a great book is for people who want to get like super specific and really, like you said, a lot of people listening to this sort of engineering mindset and the idea of not knowing the answer and needing to do this exploration kind of exercise is excruciating. They don't like it. I know that all of these CPA firms should go paperless and I know how to do it. And then they find out, and they build something or some tool or something. They find out like CPAs don't really mind being on paper or whatever the case is. So they end up launching to crickets, and it kills me when that happens. It's happened to me. I don't want it for anyone else. So getting into these conversations, super important, but there's also a way to have these conversations exactly like you're saying, David, where it's like, I am not trying to sell you anything. The phrase I usually use is, I'm thinking about creating a service and I would love to get your expert opinion before I, solve a problem that doesn't exist. So it's inherently in the question, it's inherent that I have nothing to sell. It's not even built yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great approach. Running these conversations, I would recommend to people to read The Mom Test by Rob Fitzpatrick, which gives you language to use that will help you not lead the witness and get polite, positive feedback that's actually all lies. But yeah, okay, this is great. Totally aligned here.
And then, right, then the next step is craft, where you actually are deciding what business model you're going to use to try to deliver your solution, because that's important.
Hmm.
And again, if you're going into your own business so that you have more control over your career and your financial health, you want a business model that's actually going to work for you, not the other way around.
Right. So what are some common models that your people use?
There are several common like consulting slash coaching models where it could be that you're offering something that is totally do it yourself,
Hmm.
right? So you're going to teach the client how to do this, but they are going to actually do it. There could be a do it with you model where it's very interactive, but the client is responsible for doing a big chunk of the work. Otherwise, they're not going to see success. And then there's the do it for you model where you're doing everything for them.
Hmm.
And there's an associated price point with each one. If you're looking for something that you can sell in your sleep, quote unquote, an evergreen, like a digital product, than it would be a do-it-yourself, right?
Hmm.
If you want to create something where there's an opportunity to scale, where you can make more profit and put in fewer hours over time, you need to think about what model is going to support that. So
Hmm.
digital products can support that. If you're using a consulting model, another way to do that is to start to build a team where you have either subcontractors or you have payroll, and you're just running the business. You're not actually performing the work yourself. You're responsible
Right.
maybe for bringing in the business and administering it, but you're not actually doing the work. That's, it's a very different set of activities that you would need to do versus somebody
Yeah.
who's a solo consultant doing all the work himself or herself.
Right. Yeah. I mean, those three different options are just massively different in term. I mean, in every way, pretty much. You could be packaging up the exact same expertise that you got from your corporate experience. You've got all this strength at solving a particular expensive problem. You've validated that it's out there, and then deciding to go on the one hand, digital products, and that could take a million forms on one end, and then on the other end, like you drop me in behind enemy lines, and I take the hill. Like I do everything, and
Right.
it's just mass. And then in the middle, or maybe at another point of the triangle, building a firm and just bringing in the business and being the administrator and not doing your craft anymore, just massively different. So yeah, okay, so that's a good sort of roundup.
Right. And there are others. There's like, there's publishing, there's paid speaking, there's
Sure.
affiliate revenue. The list goes on. There are a lot of different ways to sell your expertise.
Yeah, tons, and listeners will know where to find out more about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So just, pick one, at least to start with, and then come up with your delivery method, your time frame, your pricing, and then plan to test. And then it's really all about, once you're ready to go, trying to sell the first one and learn from the results and do more of what works and less of what doesn't. Kind of lather, rinse, repeat.
Hmm. And
It's,
that's
business is very iterative.
100%, yes. And is that the go step? Is that the go stage
That's
where
the
you're
go
like,
step. Yeah.
okay,
It's the iteration. And by the way, many people, particularly those coming out of corporate, where you have this mindset of getting things right, you got to get started. So don't wait till you get it right. Just, you have to be comfortable that it's good enough that you're not going to like totally fall flat on your face.
right.
But if you do something that is 70 or 80% of what you think it should be, most clients are going to be really happy.
Yeah, don't get ready, get started, right? So what when somebody gets to that go stage, what are the big blockers for people you've worked with? When I mean, in the validate step, the first two steps are very introspective, and I think to assess, yeah, and then validate is you need to start to touch the market, so to speak, have conversations with people
Mm-hmm.
that are familiar with the market, and then you're back to your own head crafting things. And now it's like, okay, it's go time, people. What's the step? What are the blockers for them getting their first clients, starting to get leads, creating a pipeline, deciding how to market? I mean, you didn't make any mention of like how they're going to market themselves. I suppose that would be in the craft piece where you decide how you're going to get the word out about your availability or what problems that you
Right, but
solve.
in the go step, there could be a lot of marketing. So fear is a huge one. I just
Hmm.
saw a post today from someone who stepped out of her comfort zone, made 7 posts in Facebook, and wrote, "I just wish I could go back to my quieter self."
What? 7 posts?
So, I don't know. I don't know what the posts were, whether they
Uh,
were in groups or whatever. But it's like, if you're not, for example, if you're not comfortable posting stuff on social media, the first few times you do it, it could be really uncomfortable,
hmm. Yeah.
right? If you're not comfortable doing business networking. I
Yeah.
remember the first time I went to a networking meeting that had a formula and there were 30 people in the room. I had to get up and give a 60-second pitch. I'm like, I've never done this. I haven't got a clue how to do it.
Mm.
Right. And you feel totally embarrassed.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine that for your folks, corporate refugees, they've never had to do anything remotely like marketing and sales. And they probably have a bad opinion of it. And now, oh no, I've got to do that stuff. I have to be that horrible used car salesman that I don't want to be. And there's this I've found, even with people who have been solo for a long time and have just been lucky in getting referrals, that the idea of doing anything proactive to drum up business or to just uh, publish, honestly, just like put your ideas in public, it's just a massive resistance to that.
Huge, huge. There's a total like big ick factor associated with all of the above.
Yeah. This is my a litmus test that I would have with someone is, let's say I was talking to someone who is like thinking about making the decision way back at the beginning of the conversation, making the decision about whether or not to go solo or try and get another job. That's my litmus test question is like, are you willing to get good at marketing and sales? Like, are you willing to pursue that as a craft the same way that you have pursued software architecture or whatever it is that you do? And if they say no, I'm like, get a job. It's like, if you don't even want to do that, you're playing on hard mode. And there are ways around it. Like they could say, no, 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 I'll find another way. I'm going to write a book and the book is going to be great and it's going to bring me lots of business. And that works too. To me, that's a very scary way to play the game because you're ceding so much control to the whims of the marketplace and everything else that goes on. It scares me to death that somebody would take that kind of a risk. But I mean, maybe I'm wrong. What do you think about people who just are just not willing to, for example, engage in conversations, or they don't want to get better at like a sales interview, I usually call them, they prospects and they talk to them and they're like, oh no, I don't want to be pushy or whatever.
As a business owner, particularly if you're talking about a solo or very small consulting, coaching,
Yeah.
expert-based business, which is what most of what we're talking about,
Right.
you're probably going to spend, I'm going to say, 50% of your time, give or take,
Agreed.
doing work that actually brings in income.
Yep.
And then you're going to spend the other 50% of your time doing marketing, sales, and administration of your business. Because if you don't do it, it's not going to happen.
Right. Right. There's this.
And then you don't have a business.
I know. This is why I was so interested to talk to you because your particular target market, by definition, has probably been in corporate for a long time, has been an employee for a long time, and has never had to think about any of this stuff. And it's just fascinating to.
Yeah. Here's the scenario that I describe, what it feels like for them, particularly in the beginning.
Okay.
They've been in their job or in their career 20 to 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And their last job was in some kind of organizational setting where they had a full calendar, overflowing inbox, a team of people to do things they weren't responsible for, and this built-in social structure.
Yep.
And they go out on their own and they have none of that. The calendar is empty. The inbox is empty. Their social structure, quote unquote, their friends from work are now ghosting them because they're like a pariah because they've left or they've gotten pushed out, which is even worse. So that they have nobody to talk to. They spend all this time alone. Then they have to get up and sell something they've never had to sell before, namely themselves. And even people that have been in marketing and sales, when you're marketing or selling a company that you work for, even if you're getting paid on commission, it's still different than when you sell yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's frightening. And they have nobody to talk to about this.
Yeah. I mean, the picture you just painted it's classic. It's like the thing about, I remember being an employee and at a place where, I could divide my salary by the hours that I worked. And I was like, thinking in an hourly basis, and I'm like, they're billing me out at 150 and I'm basically making 50 of that, after taxes, as if taxes are the employer's fault, and completely disregarding the fact that every Monday I would come in and work would magically be on my desk. Like completely disregarding that, just like taking for granted that that there's always a steady stream of work, and that steady stream of work would like follow me or find me if I went solo, and then I'd be able to keep all $150 an hour, not give away, half or more of it to someone who's just sitting around doing nothing, air quotes. Right?
Yeah.
It's like it's wild. That I love how you painted the picture of like that first Monday you wake up and your calendar is empty and you're like, oh, your inbox is empty. And you're like, oh, I guess I got to do something about this. It's a shock to the system.
Yes, it is definitely a shock to the system.
Hmm.
And which is why it's so important. You asked me at the beginning about mentors. It's so important to have mentors, to connect with people like you, Jonathan, given the expertise that you have, what you do, and the fact that there are people that engage with one another around what you do. And I think it's really important to be in some kind of community or communities with other entrepreneurs that are going through similar kinds of situations where, you know, everybody's at a slightly different stage. You can all help one another and be in a place where there's an opportunity for collaborative discussion around challenges, where there's an opportunity to help one another. Maybe there's an opportunity to actually collaborate on work when those kinds of situations come up.
Hmm. Yeah, finding a like-minded and diverse peer group is it changed my entire business trajectory. In 2015, someone just randomly, it was someone I had, I guess I hired him. I can't remember. He had done some work for me. He was independent. I was independent, but I was thinking of pivoting my business, and just randomly, he invited me into a sort of I wouldn't call it a mastermind. It was like a little Slack room with about 10 people, all different kinds of solopreneurs. And yeah, like I said, it just dramatically changed the trajectory of my business for the better. It was unbelievable, complete game changer. And to not have that, I remember when that sort of had a lifespan of about 2 years, and then we all kind of leveled up so much that it wasn't really that beneficial. We all keep in touch and stuff, but we used to be in there all the time. We would have hot seats and all sorts of things. And when that closed down, I could feel the loss. It was like, I have like literally nobody I can sort of share this win with without sounding like I'm bragging or something, or it's just inappropriate to talk about money in almost every context, every other
Yes.
context. So it's like, you're solopreneur, money is super huge, important topic, and you can't talk to anybody about it. Like, what is up with that? So having a peer group that is sort of in the same boat with you, and can be like, am I crazy? Does this price seem right to you? Or like, oh my God, they picked option three. Like, it's a game changer. It's
Yes,
super
yes.
great.
Oh, and those discussions about when people are working on proposals and they talk about some of the challenges and what their questions are about how to price things in the proposal.
Mm.
Almost every single time I've seen those discussions, the consultant preparing the proposal ends up raising the price
Right.
and getting the higher price.
Yeah.
I've seen so many consultants make more money through these discussions,
Hmm.
and rightly so. They're providing value. Their clients are getting a return on their investment. They're doing good work, but too many of us undercharge.
It's common. Yeah. It's wild. Well, geez, we could talk all day for sure. This has been great to know you a little bit better. Where could people go to find out more about what you're doing, find out about your community, and maybe they've got a friend who's corporate refugee that is being pushed, as you said,
Yes.
redeployed into the workforce?
Yeah. So the repository for and kind of the central hub for everything we do is at smashingtheplateau.com. So we have our podcast there. We have free newsletter with strategies, tips, and entrepreneurial stories that you receive every weekday. We have access to information about our paid membership community there. We also run periodic standalone workshops on some of the steps that I just ran through today. So if you're interested in having like a hands-on experience on what it's like to kind of craft your own plan, one of the workshops is a good way to test that out.
Great. Well, I recommend people going there. I'm sure they are. Longtime listeners are sensing that we're super duper aligned on all of these things. So, and I love that I love your specific target market, the corporate refugees. It's so perfect. This has been super great. Thanks so much, David.
Thank you, Jonathan.
All right, folks, that's it for this week. I'm Jonathan Stark, and I hope you join me again next time for Ditching Hourly. Bye.